so far, 9. 3 minutes apiece at the max. We'll get you there. No, it's not. It's 5:50.
I said at. I'm watching. No, it's 59.
It's not a good rub, the little pin.
That means we can keep them.
As opposed to the little pin.
I wanted to take those to the very effective. That's clear.
Depends where you are.
Okay, everybody, it's 6 o'clock. Thank you all for coming. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rob Bizzle, Chairman of the North Carolina Marine Fisheries Commission, and would like to welcome you to our public comment session where you have a unique opportunity to, on the record, give comments in regards to the Marine Fisheries Commission management of the state's public trust, estuarine, and marine resources. I ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. You will be reminded when you have approximately 30 seconds left. Please state if you represent any group. If you address the commission tonight, you will not be allowed to do so tomorrow. Remember, this is a time to share a concern or gather information, not be confrontational. Okay, the first one we have up tonight is Bill Mandelack, followed by Scott Mooneyham.
Good evening, and thank you for having this meeting so close to my house. I just wanted to make a couple quick comments. One, I think I sent a note that y'all should have gotten, an email, concerning opening the season for summer flounder and for Gulf flounder for recreational fishermen. I think it's a shame that we can't fish on those fish. I talked to some people from Atlantic States Commission, and there are other states who do that. They have separate rules for different flounders that they have. They're able to, actually in New York and New Jersey, they can tell them apart. And I figure if they can tell them apart, we sure ought to be able to. And we've only got 3 species to worry about, and only one of them's in trouble. And the others we have a potential to have a recreational fishery on the other ones. So I appreciate that. I know that we're going to have a recreational fishery for southern flounder up at Carr Lake, and I'll be up there early in September to see if we can catch any there. But anyway, I sure would appreciate you'd consider that and put that on the agenda to look at how you can do it, because you can tell them apart, and I really think it would be a nice gesture, particularly to take care of recreational fishermen. Secondly, I'd just like to hope that you continue to look at false albacore. I like to catch them. I think they're a lot of fun to catch, and I sure would hate to see they get overfished and not be able to have the kind of schools and the good fishery that we have for them there. So that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Scott Mooneyham, followed by Mark Bedker. Excuse me, I butcher y'all's names.
Good evening. My name is Scott Mooneyham. I'm a recreational fisherman from Fayetteville. I'm here to address Spotted Sea Trout Amendment 1. A big reason that the speckled trout during my lifetime has been a primary target of inshore fishermen is because of their resilience. That resilience is not my opinion. It is the opinion of your own science on the subject, and it's based on the fish's biology. One of your own studies by Tim Ellis shows that the natural mortality is responsible for 81 to 92% of fish deaths, with recreational and commercial catch and discards accounting for 8 to 19%. These fish live to a maximum of 9 years. They reach 15 inches by 2 years of age. They begin spawning between 1 and 2 years of age. They reach 20 inches by 3 years of age. The females produce millions of eggs, and they have long spawning seasons. This is the Superman of fish, and we should be grateful that we have these fish in our waters. Meanwhile, both your fish trawl and gillnet surveys appear to show no decline in mature fish. The reported commercial catch and recreational fish shows no decline in average size caught. Instead, on the recreational side, it appears to be the number of live discards or releases and increased catches overall that is driving the proposal to further restrict the creel limit. I would submit that in doing so, you'll be increasing the very trend that you seek to remedy if you lower these limits as currently proposed, because you will be causing more recreational discards. And of course, once in place, this new creel limit will never be increased. I certainly haven't seen one be increased after it's been decreased during my lifetime. So North Carolina will have the most restrictive spotted sea trout recreational fishing in the southeast to go along with the most restrictive flounder fishing in the southeast. And that's a fact. That's what those limits are already. And the people who make up the outside portion of those contributing to the fishing economy in North Carolina, the small boat inshore angler, will again bear the brunt of the changes. I don't know why any angler in the state would buy a bay boat or skiff right now. While I understand the Fisheries Reform Act of '97 mandates that certain actions be taken by the commission, I would point out that the statute also mentions
30 seconds.
equitable resolution of competing social and economic interests. So let's be honest about those competing economic interests. The only reason that our state continues to allow inshore trawling is because of the economic interest of the shrimping industry and its value to the overall commercial industry in the state. With thousands of jobs in boat building, tackle, tourism industries on the line, why doesn't that same logic apply to this decision? This is not.
Time.
I had to call time on you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Could I
comments.
submit the rest of my
Yes, you may.
comments? Thank you.
Mark Botker, I think that's right, followed by Dan Moses.
Mark Bedker.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. Grew up all my life fishing recreationally in North Carolina. A lot of the talk around, flounder and trout is around dead discards, but we have still failed to address the massive amount of dead fish produced in our trawlers fishery for shrimp. I think the pretty well established and accepted number is 3 pounds of bycatch for every 1 pound of shrimp. NC's averaged about 8 million pounds of shrimp caught over the last 5 years. That comes out to about 25 million pounds of bycatch, depending on the makeup of that bycatch, how big those fish are. That's hundreds of millions of juvenile fish killed every year in our shrimp trawl fishery. That's a lot. That's probably a lot more than is coming out of dead discards for recreational fishermen and flounder, trout, however you want to cut it. But it's continuously ignored. We're the only state on the Atlantic or Gulf Coast that allows large-scale inshore shrimp trawling. Many do not allow it at all, same for gill nets. The ironic thing about this is we are not even a top 5 state when it comes to pounds landed and money generated from our commercial fisheries of Atlantic and Gulf Coast states. I think typically we're around 8th, 7th or 8th in both of those categories. Spot, croaker, gray trout, even flounder, blue crabs make up a large amount of the bycatch. from a shrimp trawl. Not only are we removing tons of biomass from the bottom of the food chain, but a lot of those species are in themselves once great fisheries in North Carolina. We've gotten rid of those. Accepted modern management practice is to take a whole ecosystem approach. Shrimp trawling and subsequent bycatch is completely antithetical to that approach. We cannot continuously remove such large amounts of biomass from the bottom of the food chain and expect nothing to happen. Common sense management would not allow this. Not only, it's a complete failure of management, in my opinion, unless the MFC's goal is to protect shrimp trawling through the destruction of other viable, not only recreational, but commercial fisheries, then you have done a great job.
30
But
seconds.
we cannot continue to allow that amount of waste, which would not be acceptable in any other practice or industry. 3 pounds to 1, that is a ridiculous amount of waste. I don't know why it has continued to be allowed. It makes no sense, not from a management standpoint, not even from an economic standpoint, as some other people have pointed out. Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Moses, followed by Victor Tucker.
Good evening. My name is Dan Moses. I am president of the Eastern Carolina Saltwater Fishing Club of New Bern. Our club has been in existence since the late 1990s. Our members range from age in the 30s to the mid-40s. We have accumulated experience of many years fishing in the local rivers and creeks of eastern North Carolina. I've lived in the area since retiring in 2005 and have been an avid fisherman ever since that time. My comments are related to the fisheries resources that the Marine Fisheries Commission is charged with managing for all the people of North Carolina, but more specifically to the management proposals for our spotted sea trout fishery. Recently, the Spotted Sea Trout Advisory Committee spent 3 days developing a proposal to address the issues with this fishery. Their proposal was a good compromise addressing the issues associated with that fishery. Yet you have chosen to deviate from that proposal and develop your own ideas as to how to address the issue that trout may be in a status where overfishing is occurring. As we have seen in your botched attempt to address the flounder issue with a complete seasonal closure, you are now wanting to make the same failed attempt to enact a seasonal closure on spotted sea trout. You are slowly taking away any opportunity for the recreational fishermen to take any fish for their own use. Seasonal and or complete closures of fisheries not only affects recreational fishermen, but also the hundreds of local fishing guides that try to make a living as a fishing guide. It also has a tremendous negative impact on the economy of eastern North Carolina. It makes us wonder what's the point of buying a fishing license when you are so restricted in what fish you are allowed to harvest. I ask that you reconsider the proposal put forth by the advisory committee in full. I believe that proposal accomplishes the required reductions necessary to sustain our spotted sea trout fishery without the seasonal closure. It's a hard job you've been asked to do, but you really need to do a better job for the people of the entire state of North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Victor Tucker, followed by Steve Brewster.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Victor Tucker. I live in Warren County, North Carolina, which is between Carl Lake and Lake Gaston. I fished inland, joint, and coastal waters all my life. For the most part, the catch limits in the inland waters have changed very little in the past 30 or 40 years. I cannot say the same about joint and coastal waters. I had a front row seat to watch never-ending regulations in the recreational catch limits. Now, to be honest, this is not easy to swallow, but I do want to protect the future generations, such as my kids and grandkids. It's important to our future generations that we protect these fish. I do have a few questions concerning this. Why do we allow shrimp industry to kill approximately 1 billion fin fish every year? Why does the Marine Fisheries Commission keep making rules only to show failure? Why do we keep electing the same lawmakers who allow this to happen? The best answer I can come up with is cheap shrimp. This is simply my opinion based on my hours of research and looking at data. Can you imagine what our fisheries would look like if these same fish, if 25% of them were allowed to reach 1 or 2 years of age? As proof of where Marine Fisheries Commission is looking at, they have handled recent flounder regulations compared to the sea trout. Each decision made to give commercial fishermen the most amount of retained fish. And you can see exactly how that's different when you look at flounder and when you look at sea trout. So the recreational fishermen only took about 10% of the amount of flounder that was taken, 10 or 15 years ago. And look where we're at. No season, yet they still have a season. I've got a few recommendations that I'd like to see how this gets handled a little bit different. One of the things is our user groups. The way I see it is the largest group of users gets less, and the less amount of users gets richer as long as everybody gets cheap shrimp.
30 seconds.
We do not have to abide like that. We need to end cheap shrimp. Move the trawlers out of the sound. I know that's going to hurt a lot of the smaller commercial fishermen. It can be phased out so that the smaller family people get to do that. The Marine Fisheries Commission needs to be restructured so that the rules beat the most economic benefit to the state of North Carolina. We need to put North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission over recreational fishing, and we do not need to allow a
Time.
closure on a season for
Time on
nonprofit.
you, sir. Thank you for your comments. Okay, Steve Brewster, followed by maybe Mary Ellen Hunter. I got a question mark behind your name. I don't know if you want to speak or not.
Good evening. My name's Steve Brewster. I'm from Richlands, and driving 3 hours today to speak to y'all for 3 minutes, and I've got some radical ideas, right? I would really like to not be in this room again talking about trout 5 years from now. We can't do flounder again, right? We can't do flounder again. I do not do this for me. If it came down to me or some of the commercial guys I know, they could have these fish in a heartbeat. And it is this rift that's just pulling us further and further apart. And I sat on the Speckled Trout Advisory Committee, and I heard from Doug Cross, I heard from Wayne Dunbar, and they're of the standpoint that they simply cannot give anything else up. And I've heard this enough from them that I understand their stance. And I have thought day and night about what we could maybe do to get some kind of equality, to get this sort of toxicity out of it a little bit. And I feel like adaptive management is the only way to move quickly enough to adapt, because if the commercial guys pull back on something, the recreational is going to increase, generally speaking. And with trout, we have a very specific and obvious concern that wrecks take most of the trout. There's going to be a mass excess of trout in this over 20-inch range. Set mesh in the same place, you can't avoid it. You're going to catch them. So I wouldn't be so ignorant as to come up with the exact guidelines of what's going to happen with adaptive management. That's something that needs to be a big group discussion across everybody. But quotas, season closures for both sectors that ensure an equal reduction, and we can all have equal benefit from not being back in this room, not winding up in the same really bad place we have with flounder, where we suffered equal consequences that were terrible. And the best part of it is that we can just blame it all on Kathy when it goes wrong, right? Which everybody already does, right? So thank you all for your time. I do not envy the decisions you have to make.
Thank you for your comments. Mary Ellen Hunter, did you want to comment? Yeah. Okay, and the next one is going to be Donald Willis.
Hi, y'all. I'm Mary Ellen. I work for the Coastal Conservation Association. I'm just going to tell a little story and see if it resonates with anyone. I'm an only child, and everyone says my dad wanted a boy, but he had me, so he took me hunting and fishing. I grew up down east on the Pungo River, and I fished in and around there. He taught me a very sustainable lifestyle, which I love. You know, we get our meat from hunting and fishing and our fruits and veggies from our garden. And I love that, and that's how it should be. And I plan to have a family of my own one day. You know, I would love kids, and I would love to be able to take them on the same waters that I grew up on. I would love my dad to be able to take his grandkids fishing. I would love to keep forward trout. I would love to keep flounder again. But my dad and I went out there last weekend and it's dead. And it just breaks my heart. And I'm very passionate about this, and I'm gonna do everything I can with my organization to make a difference. You know, young people need to know what it was like. And yeah, so thank you so much for your time. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Donald Willis, followed by Bert Owens.
Hello, I'm Donald Willis. Most of you know me, but custom marine fabrication in New Bern is where I have made my income my whole adult life. So I make my money off the recreational fishery. First things first, the albacore need to be protected. We've got to put some guidelines on this fishery before something bad happens to it. It's such an economic driver right now for the recreational fishery. It needs and deserves to be protected. The second thing is the disclosure that we're proposing for trout. We're talking about shutting 1.5 million public trust anglers out of a public trust resource when we have nothing else to catch during January and February. You're shutting the whole fishery down. Maybe there's a couple of drum around, but not many, and they're at the coast. We're basically shutting down the whole fishery, and I do not think that's right. I talked to a good friend of mine today who has been in fisheries his whole life. His name is Eric Botnick. He owns Miralure. He told me, he said, Donald, a closure does not fix trout fishing. He said it doesn't fix any fishery. So we talked about it. And his reasoning was, you put a closure up, you put that line, January 1, we're going to shut this fishery down. What do people do? They panic. Tragedy of the commons. They keep way more fish than they normally would if they could fish year-round in this fishery, fish January and February. So they keep 2 and 3 times as many fish. They throw them in the freezer, and then at the end of the year, they throw them away. He said what happens is people panic, they get greedy or whatever you want to call it, and they keep way too many fish, they freeze too many fish, that end up getting thrown away at the end of the year. So all these extra fish that are kept before the closure hits doesn't do anything. He said he's never seen a closure come close to working, especially on speckled trout. Just food for thought there. It would definitely, I just can't see shutting this fishery down for the public trust anglers when there's nothing else. Maybe another time of the year when there's other things to fish for, but not January and February. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bert Owens.
Bert Owens from Beaufort, North Carolina. Thought I would ditto some things other people have already mentioned tonight. First off, starting with spotted sea trout. I was on the Crustacean Advisory Committee for 2 sessions earlier in my career with this kind of stuff. And after 2 sessions, we made recommendations to the 9 people present at that time on the MFC, and none were taken. So after 2 terms, I said, well, I'm gonna get off then. Now you have the Spotted Sea Trout Advisory Committee, which I think made some good, really hard decisions to put forth to y'all, and they made significant effort to try to rebuild this fishery since it's being overfished. But experiencing overfishing, I believe it is. And I recommend, and I really think the best thing would be for y'all to take their recommendations, because they consisted of citizens from both sides. They came to the decisions that they did, and they spent the time. And going forward, you're going to be asking the other of us to volunteer for other committees. I think it's a good look when a advisory committee makes recommendations that are solid, and those recommendations are taken by y'all. And so that's what I really think should happen. Is you should take those solid recommendations that the citizens brought to you. I know the DMF has their recommendations that came out with recently. Maybe they have some on other fisheries, and you can just skip the advisory committees then. That's what you're going to do. Now on flounder, I've spoken, like the gentleman earlier, on oscillated flounder, Gulf and summer flounder. In 3 trips not long ago, I caught 60 flounder. I wasn't even targeting flounder. 59 Gulf flounder. I can see the 3 oscillated spots around them like anybody can. They were Gulf flounder. I caught 1 summer flounder out of that group. Now, I was not too far from an inlet.
30 seconds.
Thank you. The further from the inlet you get, the less likely you are. You're probably catching southern flounder. But people can tell the difference between flounder with spots with right circles around them or not. And we should have a season on them. You're supposed to manage fisheries for both groups. You're not doing it when you keep us out of that fishery. So please give the people some flounder to catch. It's the right thing to do, and it's really what you're supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody out there want to address the commission that has not had the opportunity? There being none, our public comment session is now over, and we'll see y'all tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.